No? Yes. Okay. So let's continue with the programming today, and this one is about Symfony and content management, how I do it, and how I like to, put forward my message. So first of all, just a few things about me, myself. So I'm Jani Karvainen, and I've been making websites for a while. Currently, I make the web happen at Exo, so a Finnish company with multiple different technologies. We do all kinds of things there, but to be honest, I enjoy content management, and there we do WordPress, Drupal, easy publish, concrete file also sometimes. So please just try to stay awake, draw your own conclusions about whether Symfony is a good thing or a bad thing for content management or the scene in general. But here's some details which you can follow. If you're interested in these kind of topics, then you might want to consider doing something with those. So let's first think a little bit about what we'll take a look at today. We'll be first of all over the place. We'll talk like philosophy kind of things, some marketing kind of things, all kind of things, and then also some technology things with hands-on examples of how this kind of unified thing maybe helps us all, and so on. And then as a sort of final thing, it may be content management in the future. I don't know if we'll even call it that, but that's one sort of more forward-looking thing which will set up off to a nice future. We don't have corridors, but we have Drupal 8 maybe in 2015. So then about the agenda, which is my agenda. So I work with content management, that's what I like. I just, like diversity. I myself should do more without LAMP. I mostly work with the LAMP platform. Obviously I do some JavaScript or all kinds of things, but mostly with that. And then another thing is routine is good, but repeating is for robots. So a lot of content management history has been doing the same thing all over and over again. And PHP CMSes have a very strong tendency to have these closed circles within the community. So you have people in WordPress conferences making jokes about Drupal developers being something and the other way around, which, to be honest, I don't know, it sometimes feels quite juvenile, and I am an old man, so I should know. So I just urge everybody to always try something different. You don't have to stick with it, but at least you have ideas of how another system might do it, how other people have decided to go forward with some specific feature or task. So that was my personal agenda and why I'm here. So then kind of a thing about what is content management. So content management has become a commodity. 10 years or early 2000, you could ask $1 million for some proprietary, really simple software which allows you to publish content on the web. There's even an awesome video somewhere on the web where Steve Jobs himself is demonstrating this really stupid-looking web objects website, and he's really excited because he can update the prices using a browser. That's from '96 or something. It was cool, but it is now no longer the same thing. So everybody can publish and be media imperium owners if they want, and so on. And as I told, I work with content management, but most web developers probably work with content management mostly. And everything actually is content management in the end, because all we do is data somewhere and read data somewhere. There are different methods of doing, but pretty much all computing is just reading values and displaying values. So, so a lot of people do it, and it's very easy and satisfying to get started with, because if you start with a CMS, obviously an easier one like WordPress is a good example. You'll immediately get results and you know, send your friend this URL which has the site that you built and so on. So it's very, very easy to get started with, but it's very hard to master. So building a CMS, so that this won't be completely one way. Who of you have started building your own CMS? Yeah. How many have you built? 10? Okay, plenty. Yeah. At least one, because it's so really like a common thing that people always, well, this is not done right. I'll do it. And there's still like no perfect one. There's lots of different needs, lots of different things, but most of people usually always have tried to build one, but then usually they kind of wind down maybe after you realize that, well, maybe it's not so exciting, because the fact is that content management is pretty boring. You in the end create content and you display content. That's something that is by no means like very exciting in itself. But exactly the same, let's say this printing press, whatever Gutenberg created. What is more boring than creating books, binding paper together and then putting some ink on there? Well, it's also pretty boring, but it does enable exciting things. So by exciting things, I mean, for me, I've been doing some like hobby publishing for a while now, and just the fact that I can actually publish content in multiple different ways globally. If you stop and think about it for a few moments, and then you would go back in time, even 20 years, it would seem like you must have a satellite network or something. So you must be a billionaire. So it's no longer that. Obviously, you still need to have something to say or something interesting that you want to relate, but technology itself is kind of boring unless you're really into that, which I kind of am. But then again, let's open write blog posts. So then we move forward with this United States of, well, not United States, but Northern America of content management, or Northern America of content management. So basically, there's a big push always about who's the biggest, who's the largest, who's the man. It always pretty much goes there. You have WordPress obviously there, which is very, well, maybe it is the #1 publishing platform for content. And then you can see there's even something that resembles California, which is WordPress.com, which is just one hosted piece which eats many like complete content management systems in market share, just a single sort of SaaS application. Then you have Drupal up there in what's something that looks like Canada, but it's not, because it's Drupal. Then you have Yoma there, which, I don't know, somehow I think they've lost steam, in my opinion, even in the sort of holy trinity of content management systems. I think these are still the number 3 top systems out there. The thing is, feels like many times people think that elsewhere there be dragons or something, because even if you have, let's say, these 3 systems putting together 33% market share, that means there's still quite a bit of different systems which power most of the internet. So it's kind of like being in the US and then you start reading history, and you start reading history of the United States. Well, no, it's the same as, I'll do a website with one of these three, because that's how I was taught. And in addition to my closed thing with LAMP platform, so there's obviously a lot of Java. Most of the websites, probably large websites that use Java, even though some people think it's dead and obsolete, but if you go to whatever Helsinki Sanomat or other Finnish top media sites, there it is. But then if we talk about brands and communities, which is the title of this slide, to be a viable option, you need to be known and used. So no matter how good your product is, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to pull any old, technology standard war or anything like that. But the thing is that who is used most wins most. That is also limiting in the sense that there's no specific reason why WordPress should be the number one. It's one tool that is very popular. It does what it does, and it does it well enough. But it's very hard to gain any competitive advantage, something unique in this kind of open source space, where unless it's something which is quite hard, like creating a new programming language, very few companies or communities who create a new programming language that will actually be any good. So it's kind of the same thing, except here, pretty much, probably a talented team of 20 people, give them a week and they will give you a very good CMS. Like PageKit, for example, or if they didn't do it in a week with 10 people, but that's sort of one of the new systems which builds on top of these kind of things. But anyway, so let's move it faster. So, as this is brands and communities, to me, Symfony is mostly, or above all, a strong brand. So, people say a lot about PHP, that PHP might be this or it might be that, and, it might not be relevant or whatever, it might not be here in 2022. I don't care. And, well, it's there, and then as for brand, for the PHP brand, maybe somewhat not like Rolex. Symfony is actually quite a good brand, because rarely I hear anybody say that Symfony, the quality, it's nice, but the quality is not good. So it is of good quality. There's always room to argue whether some specific way maybe was the best way, because there's tastes and all. But anyway, still, I don't want to take any other brand, but it's my perception, because brands are only perception in the end. So it's genuinely high quality, trusted, and widespread. And that's why I think it's a big deal for this kind of content management system in general, obviously in the LAMP space. So that's one thing. So if we still talk a little bit about developers, so developers are going to, and many of you have, face the same basic problems of listing files and directory, or something as exciting as that. And then, well, I'll just do it myself because I know how to do it. This implementation is no good. I can do it better. And you'll need to keep on learning these math skills. So, unless you really are great programmer, that you go to work and you leave work, then I guess you can just wait for the next .NET course to be there. But it is somewhat of a calling for many people still. even though they probably say that it sucks balls, I hate it, but then you go home and you still do it. So I don't know, maybe accountants go home and do accounting. I don't know. I'm not an accountant. But anyway, so here, PHP, after a long time, achieved a level of maturity as a platform that it made developers able to share code, and because developers or good developers are lazy, they actually learn to share. So most of the things like doing it all yourself is maybe in the PHP community moving less and less. Obviously, it's always good to think new ways of doing things and so on. Some people are thinking of new ways of doing things which may not make sense at all, but somebody needs to keep trying. But for very basic things and common problems which are solved all the time, there's probably somebody that already solved it better than the average individual can, because the group is still like the board, so it's wise. But then let's just hop back. So just think about what is the #1 search engine in China, what is the #1 forum software in China, what is the #1 microblogging site in China, and what's the #1 CMS in China. Two of these are really easy for me. The two I had to really look into that. What is it actually about? Because this is like the country in the map, that there are the dragons there. It's not, obviously, search is not Google. They left because Chinese wanted to see what's happening. Forum software, there's plenty of them, obviously open source and so on. That might be one of them. Microblogging site, this is, by microblogging is Twitter, basically, the same thing. And then the CMS. So these are number of things that in the Western world, or this kind of thing, that maybe you think that I know this is it. This is what everybody uses. Everybody uses Drupal. Everybody uses WordPress. Everybody uses PHP for content management. So these are the kind of things that obviously then search is vital, which are quite easy. For forum software, I didn't ever hear about something called Discuss, and I'm not sure if it's #1, but at least it's some kind of very popular forum software. Actually, I think it was, I don't know if that was written in PHP. Then for microblogging, it's Label, which is very much like Twitter. Actually, it seems like I even tried to create an account there once so that I could see what's going on, but sometimes even accessing the sites from China is kind of slow. This is, similar kind of thing, except it's not Twitter, it's Wave. So that's a nice thing to try to get back to. So anyway, then the third one was the data CMS, which was apparently, according to some sources, really popular in there. That one is written in PHP. I tried to download the source code, but the site was so slow from Finland that it timed out. I don't know if it's behind some firewall or something, but I couldn't get it. So anyway, this kind of sets you in the mood that maybe you thought that everybody uses something, but there's so many people in the world, and even if we're a global world, there's still regions on the internet, regions here and there and so on. But if we go back to that, the big three are there in North America, knowing all the 50 states and so on, knowing which is the best place to score some drugs in Mexico, or where the best logging is in Canada or whatever. So there's still this whole other thing here, whether it be dragons or whatever. But since this was about content management and Symfony, I will go ahead and say an example. So I will say that Symfony can be a US dollar in the LAMP CMS world, so universally accepted currency. So in practice, because money is easy to understand, everybody likes money, or at least most people do. So let's just take an example of somebody in Timbuktu who likes to buy some water with imaginary currency, an imaginary amount of currency. So I would like a bottle of water, please. That will be 4 easy francs, please. Then, well, do you accept Drupal proof? I've got 7 Drupal proof. Sacre bleu. No, we only take easy francs. I mean, why would I need any of that? It's silly. So looks like no deal. But if you go ahead and you have a few Symfony bucks, which would be the equivalent of US dollar, well then, you know, then even though absolutely somebody said that it's only francs, but if you have some kind of a universal currency like the dollar, you can go to Africa and buy a meal with dollars, but you go to Africa and try to buy a meal with Norwegian kroner. Oh, it's paper, it's nothing more. So this is the kind of thing that I view Symfony as for developers to be something that is more valuable in the global space rather than in just your own specific arena. So, as I said, Symfony content management is pretty much everywhere, or again, in my world, it seems that it's pretty much everywhere. So it's there in just the components, individual bits and pieces that you can use. Routing is very commonly used, and then the HTTP kernel, so you get requests and then you send a response. That has, for example, been one of the big things for PHP. That kind of thing has taken hold. Then you have the Silex, which is a micro framework, which is one option of using Symfony components, because all of them basically build on components, and then you have the full stack, which will, if you don't know Symfony, it's quite a heavy, or it looks like a heavy framework that forces a lot of conventions on you, but obviously, like most things, even eating small rocks can be enjoyable if you just do it long enough. And Symfony itself, once you get used to it, it's not that bad. So easy or CMSes, Drupal, obviously is the poster child of Symfony. That's what I hear all the time, that Drupal is Symfony. So, but there's many different flavors of Symfony. Easy publish and platform are one way, which we'll discuss a little bit more later. One of the full stack ones, Concrete 5 is using components. PageKit is custom with components for some things and so on. So it is technically capable. I think there's no denying that, because it already powers a lot of internet, like on the lower level, not as low as HTTP level, but in the level of you get a response and you send a request and you get a response. So more and more as Drupal 8 gets more popular and more of these, then it does a lot of that basic heavy lifting, which is really kind of boring and done well already once. Why would you want, what is the advantage of creating something new which would do the same thing? Well, it might even do it a millisecond faster or something, but that's the point. One thing I would like to say that so it doesn't go full on, Symfony is the savior and so on, because obviously with Symfony you have conventions and so on, you have different ways and tools. So, but they did not invent, or they did not invent YAML, which is a markup language used for, or convention used for configuration. Twig is not actually even a part of Symfony, and Twig itself, I think it's a clone of some Python Jinja templating framework. Twig is great, but it's just an implementation of maybe something that was before, or probably differences. Console is one thing, obviously. A lot of people use Symfony Console. They did not invent anything like that, or they didn't do Composer or modern PHP namespacing and all that. So a lot of these things people encapsulate to Symfony because it's a strong brand. Composer to a marketing person is not a good brand. It is it's more important brand to the developer than Symfony is. Composer is the package manager that you use to get things, but it's not very marketable. Whereas Symfony, to me, it's a lot more approachable, and then you have a clear message that, why repeat yourself when you can use these things? So, brands are a big, and Symfony, I think, is both technically capable and a very strong brand, which is why I think maybe some products even take it into use, even though maybe they shouldn't, because it's currently in style to use Symfony. So then we'll take a look at these a few different ways that I've been using Symfony CMSes, so content management systems. I have used this quite niche CMS tool called Vault, which is very close to WordPress, maybe or closer to WordPress than anything else. It's built from scratch on Silex, so it is built from scratch. It doesn't mean the same as a PHP CMS built in scratch from in 2005, because then you built a lot of really simple stuff again and again. So it's still built on a solid foundation of Symfony and obviously other components as well. So you have Guzzle, which is the HTTP library which everybody uses. That's not Symfony. Then the second one is the Drupal 8. So that's like the poster child, which I think with the 8 version they just took too big pie of the cake. It's been coming for the last 3 years. To be honest, I think probably we should be waiting for the launch of Drupal 10. Drupal 8 could have been launched with Tweak only. Then 9 could have brought, multilingual improvements, and then maybe 10 could bring REST. But that's just one thing, which is an example of sometimes maybe things take longer than expected. But for me as a developer who doesn't work with Drupal during work time, sharing these kind of things makes it much more interesting to me to work with Drupal, because it shares a lot of these practices like YAML and then namespacing and all kind of things which are very common to me from Symfony and other things as well. Then obviously Easy Platform is the one which I mostly work with. That's why the bulk of the thing is about that. So it's built with the full stack framework. It's a big undertaking. It's refactoring an old system to this whole new system. It's also taken a long time. I think 2012 but it's not still completed. But we'll take a look at some of the advantages maybe that they have. Disadvantages is still, a complete framework with conventions doesn't allow you the same feeling of instant gratification as hacking WordPress. And now log in and modify this file and it's there. So it's not going to be like that because it is harder. It might be worse for some cases, but it's still better than it used to be, because in the past we used to learn easy publish, which was very proprietary open source in the way that it had its own conventions of doing things and so on. So this is why I think it will be the dollar, or it is the dollar. So you can use it in so many places, or even things which are not Symfony are closely tied to Symfony on a level like that. So first, the bulk CMS, so this is the thing that I use for some sites. Let's just look at the code, really, not the code, how the system works, and so on. So bulk itself, it's quite a simple tool. See how much demo effect we get. We have some preparation before. Here, yes. So anyway, I have this demo site called bolt.malloc.fi. Doesn't load anything, but because if I've used PHP before, you can see that I can install Bolt with Composer, create project, Bolt Composer, install Bolt, malloc, trigger is, blah, 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 and then some permission stuff. And now it runs installer using standard Composer stuff to download the bits and pieces, and probably does a lot of things which I don't need to care about. That's the key. And then hopefully we'll have something here. Yes. So anyway, it uses SQLite by default, so you don't need any database credentials by default. So we can use an API. And then we'll create the first user. Yes. Then we'll log in. By the way, if you want to try bolt.malloc.fi, the site is already live. So bolt.malloc.fi, so it's kind of a base thing that's there. So, you know, Symfony doesn't mean that it's super heavyweight or hard to do, because it might be that as well. But this is just one example where it kind of competes with a famous 5-minute install of WordPress. I don't know how many minutes or seconds that took, but this is kind of where I can immediately start doing useful things with my tool, like creating a new entry. And it's, as you can see, fairly common kind of thing here. So I'll just put that over then. It's there. Yeah. Okay, you can do this probably with any SaaS tool or like logging platform, WordPress.com. This is fine. This is nothing new. But the thing which how it relates to Symfony is because you go ahead and look at the configuration here. We'll turn it up once we get there. So it's a bit developer-oriented, as you might see, because the configuration is done in YAML. It might not be the number one tool for a content editor to go ahead and change the site name to bold demo. But then, if you see, you have the database names and so on. Then you have a theme here, blah blah blah, some basic stuff here. But if we change that one, just to see that we now save that one, and you can see here it says bold demo now. I mean, of course. But this is kind of boring. The thing for me is interesting that I don't really need to learn this. I mostly actually use on my bold site. I use the browser as the IDE because I don't still know what editor they use, but it's quite good editor for writing YAML in the browser. So I mostly write my configurations and everything in the browser. So obviously you can do a lot of things here, like the site configuration itself. But then if we go to, well, users and permissions, something like, but then if we go to content types, so which is pretty much a standard thing now. So you have different kind of content types, and then you put image field, all kinds of different fields, image field, text field, and so on. But this is also done in YAML, so it's quite straightforward to just pages. Bars. then let's save, and then because it needs to update the database, then it says that I need to add something there. But now you can see that the toolbar is here, and then if I create new toolbar, hello, and I could say toolbar, probably hopefully the default template of Bolt is such that it has, okay, maybe I actually didn't publish it or something. Meta is there, so it's a graph, you can publish it. Now hopefully it's there. Recent toolbar, blah, 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 blah. And in this YAML file, there's some basic things here. We're going to content types. Then my toolbar is here. You can set the template if you want to display all this kind of thing and so on. So this is fairly simple to just copy paste and add new fields and so on. Nothing really that exciting. Then what else is here? There's taxonomy, so you can define tags and things like that. Menus and so on. These are all, I'm not going to show you how to create the menu in YAML. Editing is also, because as I told, I do most of my development here. Because if I go to the base theme, I could just create a new directory and that would be my theme. But if I go to index, hello, and then hopefully on somewhere here, so yeah, there is first of all. So this is just more of it's a straightforward tool for me to get, things done fast. But that's why I came to the part with templates, because the user is quick. So obviously I need to have certain parameters or file names and so on. But I could copy paste code, template code, force template code from easy publish to Drupal or whatever quite conveniently. So this is why your skills are worth dollars, not francs, because it's kind of the same thing, even though you still need to know, okay, this system works like that, but the basic things are still there. So, this is a tool which I use for a lot of things, or not a lot of things, but the menu is really, because there's no such thing. Here, obviously, like one thing that I didn't mention, which we obviously get, is the familiar toolbar for checking the memory usage, which is complementary to the Blackfire. But because it's the same in Drupal, WordPress, it needs to be familiar to me to try to debug this with this tool, that okay, here it goes, or well, this one uses 1.3 megabytes of RAM in the request write cycle. So that's one thing, but I think that was enough about this. So it's kind of a WordPress kind of thing. Then if we go to Drupal side, so Drupal has been taking bits and pieces from different locations. It still looks like Drupal. I don't know why they have some love relationship with this theme. They're still porting it to Drupal 8, even though it just looks like the word Drupal site, but maybe that's the point. Anyway, so it still feels a lot like the old Drupal, so most of it is, but under the hood there's lots of things that are improvements. Some are like genuinely new things, but most are the same thing done again in a more unified way. So if you move from Bolt to Drupal 8 or Easy Publish to Drupal 8, all of this is more shareable. By shareable, I mean still that obviously, by the way, this is running now with PHP 7, and it's actually very fast. So that's just a side note, but if I were to, let me see if I can go to the default, where, I don't even know where the default feeds are. Maybe they're here. No? Yeah, where are they? YAML, which looks very similar configuration, obviously, and then if you dive into the templates here, instead of whatever you used to have, the proprietary kind of thing, the Drupal 7, which was their own way of handling templates, even though here is obviously different kind of variable names and so on, they're pretty much, you know, I could quite easily, well, this one I can copy paste pretty much. If I have a variable logo, I can copy this one and put it to the bold side, and because it's the same syntax template, so template syntax, so that will just work in the same way. Then let's quickly make sure that we can also get home. So if I hop over now to configuration, which is also one thing that will enable new things, because migrations are like the holy grail, because it's so hard to move from one system to another, which is stupid. If you're open, why not be open? But now you can, in Drupal 8, I don't know how to get to the exporting of configurations. The only way I know how to get there is to write instead of import is export. Then I can export the configuration for this Drupal type, which includes things like the field mapping types and so on. So if I click this one, then I get a file, which is the tar file, zip. Then where did that go? So within this package now, for example, all the views are here, so they're giving all of their internal, you know, stuff for me to port to something else. But for example, we check node type was somewhere. There's so much of it, I can't find it now. But anyway, if I open one here, for example, in Visual Studio, well, that doesn't do one because it has pretty much nothing in it. One of these should have a bit more. Because then you have the same shared configuration format, so you can free yourself from Drupal or other systems. So you know, you can have, if you just create a converter which converts this to all formats, then it will be easier to move from one system to another or whatever, because it's the same kind of indenting, and then Symfony itself has a YAML library, so you can use the library instead of, you know, counting how many indented things are there and so on. So this is the kind of thing that also the configurations, the shared configurations enable to you move certain things from, maybe before this was in some database format or some custom format, but now it's obviously custom, but it's YAML, so it's easier to switch between and convert, or it feels natural because it's the same format, data is different, the structure is different, but the format is the same. Then, let's see here. So then, we'll jump over to the meat of this discussion because of my personal history and thing. So Easy Platform is the heavyweight kind of content management system, or whatever you want to call it. And this one offers, in few sentences, content user media management for Symfony 2. So it's built on Symfony 2. It offers ad site configuration, multilingual concepts and configurations, integrated solo search, which we'll maybe hear more about soon, and semantic content model. So if you click from or create a link from one item to another, then the system will know that these two items are linked. For logging sites or whatever, it's no big deal, but if you have, if content is your business, then it might be something genuinely worth money with the same content itself. So for the features, so it integrates with Symfony to user sessions. So if I log into the CMS, if I say I log into the CMS, I'm also logged into the framework as a certain user, so I can create application functions with a separate model, be it MongoDB, Doctrine, ORM, whatever, and then because they share sessions, I'm sure there's some gaps there. But for the most part, for example, I've created some really simple CRUD stuff for redirects. I didn't need to create any new user stuff or anything. I just used the same session. It shows me that I'm logged in as the same user, both in the CMS, well, they're the same thing, but in the CMS and in the CRUD application. Then one thing, obviously, is language mapping. So you can map www.site.fi to this locale, and it's also the locale for the Symfony application. So all the translation functionalities and those are synchronized with the Symfony framework if you're used to using that. For Norway, different language, and if you use application like /hello, it will give you Norwegian translation if you're on Norwegian side, Finnish translation if you're Finnish side, so it kind of takes those away. Then the REST API, you can truly get enough of that word, but technically you have an interface which they themselves use for the new content editor, so and it's also somewhat extendable, so you're not limited to what is there, but you can add new functionalities and then it rolls up on their initial implementation of the REST API. Pluggable storage, so currently it's MySQL supported with Solver, but in the future it would support something like graph databases as well. And then integrate functionality with separate models. So as told, then in some cases you don't want to store versions of content if it's just something that is disposable. You don't want to store it in the content repository. Keep versions of user logins or whatever. You don't want that. So then you can store it in MongoDB, some kind of log or whatever. Keep bundles, as you know, sharing. Sharing, it's a bit even kind of like Drupal modules, these Symfony bundles, so they're extended functionality on top of different components usually. And if you have experience, so you use the Doctrine database abstraction layer for DB abstraction, so they use, they used to have a separate own thing that converted queries from MySQL to Postgre and so on, but that's now sort of shared. Some other than fly system is just an adapter which allows you to store files, and then you store files where the configuration defined. You can actually even store files in a zip file. So if you would use the SQLite and the zip file converter, technically you could have your whole site in two files. Two files: the database SQLite, and then the zip file containing all of the files. It will be maybe slow, but it's possible. So you can use AWS or Amazon Web Services, Azure, or whatever. I'm sure there's some glitches here and there. Then caching, which is a big thing. So they use something called Stash, which is a popular PHP implementation that does the same thing for caches as fly system does for files. So I want to cache things, then I configure that I want to cache things in file system or Redis or Memcache or whatever. And then cross HTTP cache, so it's varnish caching using the headers and so on. So it has contextual caching. Certain user groups can share the same cache, then they will share the same cache. Then they use the Lead Imagine bundle for image manipulation, scaling, and so on. But this is more of an extension of Symfony in general, because you can't obviously use POST HTTP cache directly with Drupal because the underlying structure is different. But these kind of things make it interesting, because then I can also work with any Symfony 2 application or 3 application, and a lot of these things apply. Documentation applies in many cases. Obviously, you need to learn how to use the content API and so on. But there's so much things all the time. So same skills, different tools. At least these are shared. Easy. Both Drupal 8 easy. So HTTP kernel with templates, YAML configs makes it much easier to switch from one system to another. So obviously this has always been a good point for PHP, that you can cycle a skill from a blog to a clustered, personalized news portal. So if we still hop on one production side, of course. So technically, I didn't mention anything about clustering or anything, but yeah. Then you can feast your eye on this awesome Redis blog. I just don't know anything about Redis. I set it up and then use this one. And because of this, it allows me to do things that I couldn't do myself, like share sessions and files. So there's no writes now. There's a few writes. But anyway, if you know what this is, I don't know how it really works. I just use a computer, which is the new divide and conquer. So, but still obviously don't get to keep learning to new stuff. Symfony is not the best, and one to rule them all and so on. So obviously, but content management is something that generally takes a lot of time and effort. I still haven't seen any really good options in Node, for example, for content management, because I don't know, maybe it doesn't even offer any advantages to that. What? Okay. Yeah, because I know there are some, but if you build a CMS with Node or Go, is it any better than a CMS built with PHP? Sure, if you hit the jackpot and you get 100 million users at the same time, which all need to be unique. But if it's not, truly secondary, the thing that what you want to do is, share content, write content, distribute content, and obviously other things. So then a few things about the future, which I said, I think probably it's going to be more of a melting pot content feeds. So you have all kind of feeds from Instagram and Facebook already. And I guess probably in many cases people just copy paste those from one tool to another, or have some kind of loose integration. But I think probably mixing all these, your generated content which is on the site, and then content coming from all the different places, probably will merge. And then sort of automatic recommendations will also probably be something of a big thing, that nobody decides what a specific user sees. The system will know that, you should maybe see this because this has been very popular in the last 5 minutes. And obviously, if you have even more data, then that's even more data at a function guess things. But obviously, it's for content repositories, JCR, which is technically no SQL database, you just store your content in a tree and things like that. It's been coming along again for many years, but hasn't really gone anywhere. So holding my breath on that one. But then one thing that I have thought of is, what about full front-end CMS? So you would have all the logic in applied, because all of these old school tools are still, they have a server which has a lot of logic in it. But the thing is that you can only trust the server in the end. You may have fancy front-end applications, but can you really trust it? No. The only thing you can trust is what you can think of controlling, which is the server. So it's kind of hard to maybe, it was just an idea that if there's such a thing, that you would only, log into or authenticate against the MongoDB, which you can push anything whatever the front end says that should be there. But again, is it any better? It might be, because it might, create good or excellent user experience if you just work on a higher level in the browser, create the exact thing that you want, and then persist when it comes down to that. But I don't know if such a thing exists. If it does exist, will it be better? I don't know. Then one thing which is graph databases, which might be, so it's just one way of representing content or information with links to each other. Technically, it's probably a really hard problem to solve, but it could be really a big thing, and it could maybe enable this kind of a full front-end CMS because you wouldn't need that much logic. Anyway, you can read more about graph databases because I don't genuinely know enough about them to give any solid information. But there are things like Neo4j, which is originally built for a content management system. So that's probably a good reason why it might be used for content management systems today. GraphQL is one interesting thing, which is sort of like SQL kind of thing, which you can use to query things. So that's one thing which is just kind of new. And graph databases in general, so if you have bad content or non-interesting content, it will magically make it better. That's always that high hopes that you apply a new technology and then suddenly your content will be interesting. No, if your content is interesting, it doesn't matter if it's bad or displayed in a bad manner. At least people complain about phrases that is ugly, but still I guess a lot of people use it. Because if the content is there, who gives a shit about the technology? It's secondary. Obviously, then if you go to extreme, then you can't access the content. But if you want to learn about graph databases more, tomorrow there's too bad there's also a strike. There's a presentation from, was it Peter Hillerström? Yes. Yeah. And he's talking about graphs, or thinking in graphs. He has some demos, should be interesting. It's also streamed live. The links to that also are in this presentation, which I will share the address to you. But that's happening tomorrow at 6 o'clock, and I guess it's also viewable afterwards. But that's something where you can maybe get more idea of what graph databases are. But then if you apply them to content management, it might give you new views into things. So then there's just some SEO links which I put here. You can see these or not see these. Comments, I will unblock my own comments, but if you want to send comments, just better send them here. There's a discuss thing here. If you have any questions, because it did turn out to be just a monologue again, but if you do have any questions, please go ahead and ask. Ask now, ask later. Maybe I will still pop that if you want to ask them in another way. I will just pop that to that. Here come things where you can ask and where I will post this link. So I will probably be repeating my own things 55 times. So you will find these slides here. If you want to talk more, you can talk on Twitter, or ask me now, or ask me in the next meetup, or whatever. So hopefully this gave you some kind of a practical idea of why Symfony as a brand is very good for content management, why I think it breaks down boundaries, because you can use things for many other things. That's pretty much it.